Welcome to the IP2 podcast. I'm Shea Ashby, and as always, I'm joined by Felix Chung.
Our guest today is Steven Jennings. He is the co-founder of Red Riot Games, one of the first LGSes to support Flesh and Blood in Canada, and a mainstay in the Canadian Flesh and Blood community. Most recently, he and Red Riot Games were selected to be the TO for the Canadian National Championship event. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Steve, can you tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to the point where you are today?
Sure. I've always kind of been the highly competitive gamer as a kid. I think my first ever video game tournament I ever entered in, or any kind of tournament of any sort, was you guys might remember this. It's they had a video game championships, I think it was, for Blockbusters, which was for Donkey Kong Country. And I entered that. I think I was in grade 2, or I'm pretty sure I was in grade 2. So this would have been like 1992, like super long time ago. And I did okay. I can't really remember where I ended up. I didn't win. And then shortly after that, there was when Sega Channel was going to all the malls all over across Canada. And I didn't know it, but I had walked into the mall and there was a Sega Channel tournament. And every round there was a different like game they were playing that was available on Sega Channel. And I was in that event and I got like to second place, but first place got like the Sega Channel thing for their house, 1 month free of it. And I didn't win because the last game was a sports game and I loathe those. After that, just kind of all over the place with wanting to get a bunch of my friends together and play games. But it wasn't until maybe I was about 15, 16 years old, I was able to start playing fighting games on the internet. And after that, I started looking at trying to get people to meet up together to play a fighting game called X-Men vs. Street Fighter.
Mm-hmm.
So I started getting a bunch of kids in my mom's basement together to play fighting games. My mom used to think it was a party. She'd get really upset and kick everybody out. And then still to this day, my mom is not a fan of like a bunch of gamers in her house. But I grew it from there to something I called Edmonton Gamers. So it was called Edmonton Fighting Game Community, and then it became Edmonton Gamers. And then we hosted most of the fighting game tournaments in Edmonton from around 2005, 2006, whatever. After the Perry moment, pretty much, I'm hooked up with another Third Strike player, and we hosted fighting game tournaments for the next 15 years. 10 to 15 years. The largest series we made out of that was called Alberta Beatdown. We started getting enough finances from it to fly down people. So we flew down we had to fly down Justin Wong for an event. We flew down Mewtwo King for an event. We flew down like a bunch of different video gamers from all over the place. And it was really exciting for me to have all these people showing up and making trailers for like this best player versus this best player. This guy from Western Canada is going to fight this guy from Eastern Canada. It's all going to happen. You kind of get like the whole wrestling vibe from it, or they kind of. I try to make the trailers like themed around like like the the Terminator 3, how they had the crazy intro, and it's like it started getting exciting and more exciting and more exciting, and people are like, I don't even know what's happening anymore, but I just want to see this go down. So. It was like, I kind of stepped into the role as tournament organizer from wanting to just basically get people together to play games that I liked, but I needed to play games that other people liked so I can belay them into mine. So I would, host a bunch of different fighting game tournaments, and then we started doing League of Legends, some League Legend events, some StarCraft events, so a bunch of Halo events, different genres, but it was always like kind of fighting games, and it was always with the idea of wanting to do more and bigger and see how far I could push it and trying to exceed expectations. Little bumps along the way. I think the largest event we had was about 340 people, which is a lot bigger than Mom's basement. It was probably the fun I've had with anything, mostly because it was like, just it's doing something I loved. That was fun. It didn't make a lot of money, almost no money, but I enjoyed it. And then there was a card game. So what got me into card games was there was one called Universal Fighting System, or UFS. It had Mega Man and Street Fighter and Tekken and Soul Calibur and just like everything. I was like, how is this even possible to be a game? Is this real? And I got really super into it. and then he started attracting players from like other cities, and they were talking about winning tournaments and flying all over it. I'm like, what? For card games? Like I couldn't like grasp it. Yeah, so that's the background. Sorry
Nice.
for what like my competitive background is. Mostly fighting games with some card games.
It's so interesting because you mentioned, yeah, that you did fighting games for over 10 years, organizing these tournaments.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of people in Flesh and Blood today have some sort of connection to fighting games. I mean, is that something that you've noticed as well?
Um, a little bit. I know I there's a local player. His name is Mike C. He's a Kano player. He told me he played fighting games, and when I met up with when he came up to the store, I was like, "Kate, let's go, let's start playing." I think it's been a while since he played. But and then so it's kind of a thing where we have like customers that come in once in a while. It's like they play card games, like, oh, I think I could beat you in this fighting game. Like, nah, man, this is like boxing. You don't play fighting. You don't play at fighting games. You actually either play it or you don't. And then
Yeah.
I haven't lost that in them yet. I'll say that. So it is fun. I do notice that at least as far as UFS was concerned, there was a ton of people that played fighting games because Street Fighter is the first set, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of with fighting games, especially like Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom, it's like high speed chess, right? And card games, the chess is slowed down, right? And depending on the card game you play, there can be like a really crazy board state that you kind of get to brew up to do in your mind before you like hope that answers that question.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of moving along here, you started with something small in your mom's basement and that grew into a huge tournament. Like 300 and some people is nothing to scoff at, especially from starting from a passion.
Mhm.
And then moving into, opening your own store. Have you considered yourself always to be an entrepreneur? Or is this something that's just sort of, I guess, driven out of passion?
So growing up with my mom, she has like 5 kids, and we weren't like well off to say the least, right? So 5 kids, no pops in the house. So a lot of times we wanted to get something like a new video game system. If my grandpa wasn't going to get it for like Christmas, we had to work for it, right? So I would shovel sidewalks, I would rake leaves, I'd try to with my kid hands clean people's drains out, like the where like whatever. And I try to like help clean up stuff off of the roof. I'd mow lawns. Sometimes help out old folks with like they have a bunch of like broken like pieces of their tree that fell down throughout the year, and he wanted to pick it up and put it away. My uncle owned a stump removal company, so I try to like help him. There's not a lot I can do, but he'd always have me with them.
Yeah.
So like pretty much since probably I was about 12 years old, able to like get a job and functionally work. Not like a job, but you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
have some
Always helping
kind of
out.
income in some kind of a way um, to get the things I like buying Dragon Ball Z toys. And you had to get it myself, want
Yeah.
to. So that I've always had a mind to like, if I want something, I'm gonna have to work for it. Period. No one's gonna give it to me. I have to go and get it myself.
No, that's a pretty good story. I'd like to talk about, the origin story of Red Riot Games. What made you finally decide to jump in and, open your own store?
So it's kind of funny because the name of the store and the idea of having a store is actually Matt's idea. So he is a huge fan of redheads. I like to bug him that he's a fan of fake redheads because he named the store after Kirishima, because his name is Red Riot, right? But Kirishima dyes his hair red, so I joke with him. But and all his favorite characters in every game always have red hair or they're Viserai. Which I like sent him a card with Viserai red hair once. But
Yeah.
he loved My Hero Academia. He really loved Kirishima, so he really wanted to like make UFS a thing. And like the very moment I moved over to Mississauga here from Edmonton, I started trying to build a UFS community because they're just like, yo, I gotta make people play this game. They don't understand how amazing this game is. And he was one of them. At the time, when COVID hit, I was like, yeah, well, I guess the show's over, and I had to move back to Edmonton because like the job place I was working at, it was kind of a toxic work environment. for myself and my fiance. So I left that work environment, but I didn't expect COVID to happen. Like it wasn't even a thing at the time, and it just appeared. And I didn't really foresee staying on like COVID money indefinitely as an intelligent thing for myself to do, and that I would have to like find work probably back in Edmonton instead of staying here indefinitely.
Yeah.
So what happened was I told Matt like, hey, I'm probably gonna move away. How about we do this though? I know you help with your website, getting things up. Let me work for you for a week, and if you don't like the way I work, I'm not gonna hold any hard feelings for it. And I'll go my way because I'll make enough money to move me and my kid back to Edmonton, and like you take care of yourself. And he's like, okay. So I just went nonstop, like 16 hours every day. Like I got to make this work, and we were only selling UFS at the time. So, and the more that kind of morphed over time to like, because COVID, we couldn't do anything, right? And the more like he got to see like the kind of value that I was bringing to him, and I just kind of, and then we weren't even thinking about like doing any other games, but we also thought like, hey, maybe we can build up on the community that we have, but it will be online for UFS. And then we started doing Pokemon. And then unfortunately, one of the people that was working with Matt, we found out that, maybe he's a little bit dishonest on inventory. And when we figured that out, we were able to figure that out because I was inventory literally every single scrap of card that he had. I was like, oh, look, these numbers don't make any sense. I was like, oh, wow. So then it just became me and him working, and I told him, hey, you know what? Since like I'm literally spending more time on the business than you are, what if we do like this? Because he has a regular job where he works for Canadian Pacific Railroad, right?
Right.
And that's he's at the time he was 2 weeks on, 1 week off, so he didn't have enough money to spend on his business to grow it because he had to work.
Yeah.
So I just took it on full time. We moved everything into my basement, which is rough. And there's cards everywhere. It's crazy. Anyone who would have been on a webcam game with me and like saw me put the webcam up would just see mountains of cardboard everywhere. It's insane. And like I said, like why don't I work with like my sweat equity into the company? So I'll work for the first 5 hours, and then any other hours after that, which we can log through the site, we'll use that as my buy-in for the company.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll work minimum wage even, right? Until we're done with this. So long as I don't have to worry about paying for my kids or paying for like feeding my son or paying my rent or anything like that. Like as long as that's taken care of, rent, everything, we're good, and I'll work at this. And he's like, sure. And we kind of grew from there, right? Like that never became a problem. A few months after opening the store officially, we signed our paperwork and like, wow, I own a business. It only took 2.5 years.
Yeah. So Red Riot Games started out as a website.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, you became a brick and mortar store.
Yep.
Was there a catalyst? Was it something that you guys always wanted to do?
Yeah.
How did that end up happening?
So a couple things. So if we backtrack a bit, Pokemon wasn't doing so great, and UFS was lucky if we got $1,000 in sales a month. So we were actually looking like, hey, this might be not gonna be a thing. And Prince Distribution almost literally forced us to take one case of the Welcome to Ray. They're like, fine. And that was what Matt likes to do, is Google everything. And he's like, wow, this card's for like $6,000. And I'm like, what? No one pays $6,000 for cards. Because UFS, the most expensive card, is like $50. So like, no one's going to do that. And anyways, we started, I guess, growing a community through the Discords with Flesh and Blood. And we had I would say, a very polite conversation with a staff member, let's say. I'm not going to say what company, just a staff member that said, you really need to have a brick and mortar store. COVID is ending, and Flesh and Blood is meant to be a game that's played in the flesh and blood. Like, oh, I see. Well, so we had to find a store, and we were frantically looking everywhere around the Mississauga area. I was like, man, it's got to be close to me, or I have to have a bike. Because it's like I have to be able to get back and forth from the store, and I'm going to have to be in there most of the time. And we actually ended up finding a store, and then shortly after that, we got a Road to National. So you could say part of the catalyst was we weren't going to be able to continue to have Flesh and Blood anymore, and unless we had a brick and mortar store, we wouldn't be able to sell sealed or anything. So we kind of had to go down that path.
Yeah, so looking at your website right now, your store has diversified and broadened. I see that there's supplies and there's Flesh and Blood and Magic and Pokemon, and there's also some newer card games like Lorcana, One Piece, Digimon, and
Mhm.
others. So
Yeah.
quite a diversified portfolio, I guess you could say, of different games.
Hmm.
I am always curious for different card stores, which are the games that really move the cash register and keep the store running? Is it, I mean, if you ask a lot of people, I bet they would say it's just Magic. Magic is 80% of sales and everything else is a blip, or Pokemon is the vast majority and everything else is minor. And I'm just wondering, for your experience, you've been in this business now for some time. What's the experience of Red Riot Games in terms of which are the biggest card games for keeping you in business?
So I'm gonna answer that question in a different way, because it's almost cheap to say that it's just the big three and then whatever's hot else that month. But the reality is the games that make the most money for the store are the ones that you built the community for, right? So if you have built a community of, let's say it's Genesis, you built a really big local community of Genesis players, then you're gonna have a whole lot of people, or like, sorry, you have people, a bunch of people that love Genesis. You have 20 guys show up a week for Genesis. That's the game that keeps the store going. Or like, so for us, there's where we do Digimon, and a lot of people show up for Digimon. The smallest is 6. The most has been like 22 people that show up for Digimon. And it's not once a month, only when a release comes out. Like they're there, they're playing, right? And they do all the pre-ordering. Is that community? Every now and then you get guys who pre-order from other places, but these guys are there every single week. They're there for all the pre-releases. They're there. If you have 2 pre-releases on 2 different days, they show up in numbers for them. That's more what the stores function and direction should be. What community do you want to build for your store, and does your local demographic support that? There are stores that I talk to that can't get 6 guys together to play Digimon. There's stores I've talked to that have like 50 people that show up every week for Digimon. So same thing for One Piece. Like if a card game's new, Lorcana, every store can fill right now, sell out completely in Lorcana. You put Lorcana in your store, sell out, but it's new, right? So the games you build communities for have the most fun, especially the ones that have a casual format that people like, which does tend to be Magic with Commander.
Hmm.
Maybe it will be for Flesh and Blood with the next set that's coming out, or not next set, this thing that's coming out next week, the week after. Sorry, gotta look at my schedule. Um, Also, like I think that if you go in saying like we're gonna be a Magic store, and you don't got like a guy who wants a pack within like a 3 mile radius, you might find that you're now an online seller, right? And also the people who buy cards online are very different. If your store is really well known for Flesh and Blood, you move way more Flesh and Blood singles than any other game that you have in your store. And mostly it's just in person. It's Magic guys, right? Because you're not really known for having a lot of Magic or whatever. So it really depends.
Okay, so just to build on what you've been saying, Flesh and Blood has always been a priority for Red Riot Games, from the very beginning, including you described the reason why you got that physical space was in part due to being able to continue to host, your armories and bigger events as well.
Mhm.
So is Flesh and Blood still doing well for your store, and is that because you think of that community that you started with and have continued to prioritize?
So for whatever reason, LSS really loves our store. So if we host an event and we send them pictures, they put it on that site, right? They gifted us with a national event. We were one of the first stores to do playmats for the game, right? And we're like, you know what? If we're gonna get in trouble, it's okay because we'll sell all the playmats before we get sued. like we're literally these are 2 madmen in a basement, but like the entire point of this of having a store was because we really wanted to keep doing Flesh and Blood, and it has continued to be a game that supports us. So long as we have inventory and stock, it will sell. We're never suffering. We're never sitting there with like, let's say we spent $10,000 that week on Flesh and Blood. We're not like, oh my god, what are we gonna do? We bought all this Flesh and Blood, and now it's gonna take forever to sell. It's like, we got this Flesh and Blood, it will sell. It will be fine. There's sometimes I look at the inventory and I'm like, what the hell is going on with Arcane Rising? We have nothing. Not even like, what's that? There's that one card that I swore behind for my Kasai deck. It was way back before she got in. You get one intellect when you get plus one intellect if it hits.
Pursuit of
of
knowledge.
knowledge.
I swore up and down that was the card that
Spicy.
you played. Yeah, it never hits. so we don't even have that, right? So I think if you have community for it, both online and offline, and you really put your name on the map, your social media footprint is very good for a game like that. Yeah, and even in niche, there's money in niche. You know, if you're doing a game that you're really well known for, yeah, Flesh and Blood for us. I don't think is a niche game, and we can, sometimes our weeklies aren't really huge, but there's a lot of people that come through and buy singles.
Quick question. Sorry, what is your definition of huge? Like, what are you guys getting for weekly armories?
So our armories will go between 6 to 16, right? It depends on a lot of stuff. So I remember when we were doing, we were drafting for Uprising. We were one of the few stores that had draft boxes for whatever reason, or had boxes of Uprising, because we over leveraged ourselves for Uprising, knowing that all the tournaments had a portion of it, like at Worlds, was gonna you have to draft.
Yep.
So if you wanted to draft practice, you had to go to a store that's doing draft, or buy a box to draft with you and your friends. So we had Tarek Patel and Matthew Dilks, like that squad were coming around along with our locals, and on Thursdays for draft, which is not even our regular day for Flesh and Blood. We just decided to start hosting a separate draft, and Mike C and all the other good players we have, we're just showing up to do the draft with the better players.
Yeah.
So that was turning in quite big, because we're getting as big as having two pods. It's quite a lot of people just for a draft. I eventually stopped entering them because I was getting real sick and tired of drafting that set. But it was like 9 months of draft. But
a lot of people did.
Leading up to Worlds, we had a ton of people trying to draft it. Now we have people asking to draft Monarch, right? But a regular is like 6 to 12. The group of 6 is literally a friend group. Now we have a group that's wanting to come out on Wednesdays, not this week, but I guess next week. And they just want to play Blitz, and they're a university group, 8 to 10 people that want to play Blitz with just each other. They want it to be Armory events. Explain to them that we have a day for Armory. They don't want to play with the rest of the community, so we're gonna breadcrumb them in.
Yep.
And they're and we get that often. We're like, there's a group of friends that just want to play with just each other in the store, and one of the guys will get a sniff of it, and they'll show up trying to play with them, and like, hey guys, there's a bigger group, check it out. So we kind of sidetrack here, but the Flesh and Blood is a great game for our store. When we do our bigger events, we get really good numbers on them. We've gotten as big as 60 people in the store, which for our store is quite a few people. We can only fit 72 people in here. And as a game that, in terms of liquidity, Flesh and Blood has never failed us.
That's an interesting situation that I've never heard anybody talk about. A small group of people coming in, wanting to play a game, but not wanting to be a part of the community at large. That's the first time I've ever heard of that. Is that something that so I guess you mentioned that you've seen that multiple times? Is that specifically for Flesh and Blood, or have you seen it in other card games?
Oh yeah, definitely with other ones. There's a group of so we have a weird situation in our store where we have 3 different commander groups that come in here. So we have ones that come on Wednesday. It's our free to play day, and they only come for the free to play day. They do not come any other day of the week. And there's like 8 of them, right? And they just want to play with each other, and they sometimes, very seldomly, they'll go into another pod, but they're just playing with each other. And then they're around like 20-ish years old. And then we have this bigger group that comes on Friday. And a lot of some of them, they play like a tabletop game. We don't advertise on our site at all because we don't sell any of it. But they play Crisis Protocol, a Marvel Crisis Protocol. They're just playing with each other. They spend a lot of money because they have a lot of. I don't even know what's going on at that table, but it looks crazy. It looks like something the child version of me would be like, yo. But anyways, they're all playing that, and then they pull out their like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 commander decks, and they just play with each other. And they're about 50. They're all 38 to 60 years old, and they only play with each other. And then there's all the other commander people playing in the store at the time, and they don't really play with them. They just play with each other. Then we have Sunday, and that's the competitive commander players that come out. So like, it's weird, but like, they all play different at different times. So it's a little surprising to say the least. Like there's like different personalities even in the groups. For Flesh and Blood, there is definitely some people who are very shy about the idea of playing with the competitive community because they're not very confident in their ability to win. So because they have such a hard time, getting around the idea of legendaries, and like you can talk to them all day and all night that you really don't need a Findel Spring Tunic to play. Like you can play without this card. Like, no, I just want to play with my friends, and when we get used to it, and sometimes you'll get those show up, but like sometimes like the players can be quite competitive. Like the ones who come on the Saturday, so they might come and play that and feel the presence of the meta and get scared off because of it, or they might be just new to card games in general and aren't really sure how to insert themselves. So what we'll do is we'll the staff like try to play with them or just encourage them to come out or tell the guys about it, and then they'll show up, but not to beat them down, like they'll get beat down, these noobs, but like kind of just show up and like present the more positive side of the community, like, hey, I also play, or you want some ideas on like ways to make your deck stronger, or hey, maybe this line of play would have been smarter, and we have our really budget versions of the decks, so we try to use that against them. So you're gonna get that, like even the group that plays on Saturday, they were just a group of friends that never played. They just bought boxes and went home and played. So and now they play on as many events as they can whenever they can.
Yeah, the whole community dynamic that you've described, it actually reminds me a lot about board game meetups. Like sometimes there would be an open game day, but myself and a few friends would show up with the intention of sitting amongst other people, but playing amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
That's really what it reminds me of. But
and we have that too. We actually have a group of friends that come here and play board games. They also play Commander with just each other. They will not play with anybody else. Their decks are completely proxy, and they have a blast playing, but they do not play Commander with other people, and they only play board games with each other. I often I kind of poke fun. I'm like, what is that game? What are all these little houses here? Because I don't know what the games that they're playing. They have a series they're playing. What is that game? It's one of these board games here that lasts forever. Oh, Gloomhaven. Yes. They've been playing Gloomhaven every week here. Oh my Lord. I don't know what's going on with that table, but it's definitely interesting.
Yeah. So just to pull things back a little bit. So you've described your store is all in on Flesh and Blood pretty much. You're very supportive of the game.
Yeah.
The game was, again, one factor in becoming a brick and mortar store at all. And the way you've described it is that the game can support an LGS and be a big part of a store being successful, which is great to hear. I think sometimes we hear from other stores in other regions, and maybe there's an expectation that that something like Flesh and Blood will run itself a little bit more. And it sounds like you and your staff have to put in some extra work, because Flesh and Blood is not going to be like Pokemon, where a release is going to happen and there's going to be 100 Pokemon fans all begging their parents or lining up for boxes. I mean, is that something that you have to put more work into, I guess,
Yeah,
than,
absolutely.
yeah,
It goes without saying that you do not get a community for free.
yeah,
You know, like, yeah, you might get people that show up and buy Pokemon, but if they're not sitting there playing in your store, then you don't have a Pokemon community. And like, you have to. There is a store down the way from us called Kenzen Games, and those guys put in every bit of energy they have to having a Pokemon community, and they have one of the biggest Pokemon communities in Ontario. I don't know anyone else that's as big as they are. Even the bigger stores like that just have money and they have all the inventory. These guys really care about their Pokemon community and it shows, and they have the turnouts to prove it, right? So the energy that you put into building a community, like think of it like this. If you sat there and you put in all this effort and all this energy to having a store and you're having a brick and mortar store and you studied that industry at all, why do you think that the grinding stops because you opened a store? That's when it actually truly begins. So if you want a community to exist, you have to create the community. Every time I heard someone say, "Well, I had no one in my city plays." Well, okay, how many times have you reached out to players? Well, I did that before and no one came. Okay, when's the last time you did it? Last year? Okay, dude. People, the next guy who wants to play the game was 15 last year. Now he's 16. Maybe he wants to play the game. Maybe he has a different interest. Maybe that guy didn't come to the convention to play your demo, play your demo that you're doing for the game. So you have to go to more, and you have to have multiple demo days and really put a lot of effort into it. You're not going to just have a game and just have a community and put half the guys who play Lorcana in our store are One Piece players who started off as Flesh and Blood players, and they're friends of they're all friends of one guy named Nevin, and they're all those people come out to play because of this guy loved the store and how we treated him, right?
right.
So you have to put in effort to grow a community. You do not get a community for free. So which and like anybody who has a business that wants it to grow has to understand that just because you bought Flesh and Blood and it sells well doesn't mean it's going to sell well for you if you put zero effort into it.
No, thanks a lot for that. And, community is something that Shay and I are very passionate about from a player perspective. One thing that we hear sometimes, again, is maybe it's all well and good for a store to have an active community of players that shows up for something like armories, but maybe that's not very profitable, or maybe just having those players through the door doesn't justify the space that they take up. What would you say to someone that says that? And furthermore, like how does a community translate into sustainability for a store like yours? Like how are those community members contributing back to helping your store thrive?
So first, if somebody said to me that like, yeah, we know we have 8 guys to come in, but it's not really worth giving them table space, I think they're crazy. Because I will have 8 guys in the store playing Flesh and Blood, and that says these are 8 dedicated guys. They come every single week. They're part of the investment into your store. You get promos for free from LSS, free. So you need to pay for it, and you can offer people store credit or packs or whatever. So let's say it's store credit. Okay, 8 guys, $60 store credit, $40, whatever you want to do store credit, whatever you're charging. I don't know, right? And that money that they're spending now is locked into the store because they paid to get into an event, right? And they buy drinks, they buy chocolate bars, they buy sleeves if you're doing a draft. Sometimes I don't know why it's still a thing, but people don't bring sleeves for a draft. They're gonna buy sleeves from you. And when they want to pre-order, they're gonna pre-order with you because you're the guy that's supporting them for an event time and time and time again. If they want to, if they, I did need a couple cards for my deck. Well, I can get it from such and such card store, but like, I got to get it from my local store because like that's where I go and play, right? Like if your attitude is like, no, 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 these guys won't support me. I don't know. I question that person's even, why did you get a card store? Like you like why, like this is the function of this industry is community. To me, community is more important than just straight sales because they'll buy packs from you which is many times more profitable than selling a booster box, because break a pack down, that's 24 packs, $5 a pack. Like, come on, this math, let's come on now, right?
Yeah.
Or you open up the cards, you get singles, you get a whole bunch of guys buying singles, you get traction through your website, you get traction through the door. Like, if you host larger events and you put up something, okay, so we used to do event series that called Chase the Case. So we put a case up, and everyone shows up for it. They want to get a case for it. One box goes to first, second, and third, fourth. People, hey, let's go in there. We raffle off some cold foils, or now we have a 3D printing machine, so we 3D print like some statues for Flesh and Blood. It costs us 80 cents to make one, right? So like, you show that love there, and people are going to be like, they're going to think about your store and think about the positive. And maybe they play other card games, right? Maybe they play Magic and like, hey, I want to get into Magic. I'm going to go to Red Riot, because they do Flesh and Blood. They also have some Magic. Let's see what Magic they got. They're going to come to you first, right? So like, people will pivot to other games and have other interests, right? We have a lot of people that come in. The first second you see we come in, the entire back wall of our stores is full of Flesh and Blood banners.
Yeah.
Almost every single part of the store is Flesh and Blood banners. I'm running out of space here. And it says like, this is a game we like a lot. Do you see? There's very few Magic stuff here, but it has mostly Flesh and Blood, because that's the game that at least Steve likes, and so does Matt, right? So we're gonna promote it, and you see that promotion, people ask questions like, hey, so how big is Flesh and Blood? Like, they ask those questions, and when they ask the questions, they're interested, right? So it's all part of the game, right? If you don't see a value in community, this is not the industry for you.
I really love how much you're impressing upon this, how important community is, and the efforts that a store should go to cultivate that community. So for other stores, or even players listening to this, do you have a tip that either players can bring to a store, or a store that can try to put out there for their community that, can maybe help cultivate a community, or something that you guys are doing that is working for you that we can share and try?
Okay, first, I think you need to be knowledgeable about whatever the game is. You need to be knowledgeable about not just Flesh and Blood, but other card games, so that you can explain this game to them with references to their game, right?
Right.
So when someone comes into like, what kind of card game is Flesh and Blood? Is it like Pokemon? Like, okay, so you draw cards just like Pokemon, but that's where it changes. That's it. So here's what happens in the game. I was like, you ever played Diablo? Yes, I played Diablo. Okay, you have an equip screen on Diablo? Like, yeah, this game has equipment just like that. And the more rare equipment is, sometimes it's better. Same thing. And you have abilities and stuff like that only a certain class can learn. Same thing. Like, oh, that's kind of cool. Oh, I like that. And then you go through explaining the game to them in a way that it doesn't feel like you're so stupid you don't realize this is the best card game ever. Like, no, but and you don't overburden them with information. You just sell them on the good attributes that the game has. You sell them on the tenets of the game, and how involved LSS is in OP and making sure to onboard stores with the game, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So doing a demo day, obviously that helps. You can step that demo day up though. Don't just, here's a demo deck, have fun. No. I did this before, and it's hilarious, because these two players talk about it all the time. Give them 2 Ira decks. Like, all right, so you guys played the first game. Okay, so you guys have to play 5 separate games. Okay, just check it out, 5 games, and I'm gonna make the decks crazier each time. Like, oh, crazy. Okay, so first thing I had Razor Reflex to each deck.
Yeah.
Two copies. They're 2 red Razor Reflexes. All right. Okay, we're gonna add Soul Beach Strike in there now. Okay, now we're going to take away this weapon, and we're going to put Kodachis in the deck. All right, and then you slowly make the decks a little bit crazier. And before I knew it, these 2 players were playing with, like, they didn't have no legendaries. I just call them Paper Knights, because they're using all, like, Iron Wrought armor. And, like now they're like, oh, does he have a Razor Reflex in his hand? Or, like, you can see the gears turning in their head, and they're having fun with it, right? And the two players, one of them's Alba. They were the scorekeeper at the event. The other one is sorry, Alba's in the front. I'm watching them close the store. And the other one is Nevin, who like brings his friends to play every game that we host here. Those 2 players went on to play the game indefinitely afterwards, right? Nevin comes in every once in a play, and they remember that for forever. So he made it a memorable thing, and the game was getting crazier and crazier. both of them were buying boxes afterwards. They're trying to make their look at other characters. What else do they play? Like, you know, you kind of, oh, this is Ira, or this is Dorinthia. She's a warrior. She doesn't do it. She's like always chicken blocking you. Like, please, please, for the love of God, block this attack. So like, you make it the game exciting to play. And the only thing you're upselling is the fun factor the game has.
Yeah.
If you make the game seem like it's not fun and it's like, okay, basically to play this game, you drop down $700 into your deck and you just beat your opponent to death. You're like, oh, cool, great. This is what I hate. Also, you sell people on the community. You have to sell people on the community by that's going to back the game because these are the guys you're going to play with, right? And every single staff member in this store knows how to play Flesh and Blood and has a favorite character and has a bad favorite character. For me, it used to be Kasai, and she's not bad, but she was bad before. But anyway, like, you sell people on the fun of the game because if it's not fun, why would they spend their Wednesday afternoon or their Saturday morning or whatever playing something that you don't have fun with, they don't have fun with, you know? You can have a commoner event and you can invite new players out to it. You can have what's it called? You can have an event like, okay, no legis, the anti-legi event, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, find a way to make it fun for new people to show up. So we like this example. We have these university kids coming out. I say, hey, you know what? If you guys want to have it for free, and we'll just run the tournament for you, no problem. If you guys want to have prizing, we have tons of promos. We can give you guys a pack on entry. Everyone pays $5. And we could award the winner there. And then, once a month, we can make a little statue. And it's just your group, just you guys. No one else will go in there. Bring as many university students as you want. And when they left, I shoved a whole bunch of bulk into their hands, probably about, 10,000 cards. So 2 5K boxes is just random bulk we haven't sorted for a bunch of sets of Flesh and Blood. Go home and make some crazy decks, guys. Right? One, we don't need to have so much bulk in the store, clean up the thing a little bit.
Yeah.
And two, now they're going to go home, they're going to make all kinds of crazy decks, and it's going to be fun. They make it fun. You have to make the game fun. If it's not fun, I guess that's the thing. It's fun. Post on your Facebooks, your Discords, your Instagrams, like, get out there. And if you get 2 people to show up, don't be like, oh man, only 2 people showed up. Like, okay, great, 2 people here. We're going to make this the craziest ever. Like, that's what you should be posting at. Like, you got to think optimist. If I don't think it's fun to play and like, oh, only 2 people showed up, why the hell would I ever show up again? However, if 2 people show up and you make it the most nuttiest thing ever, those guys might come back and they're like, maybe the guy's like, you know what? I think my friend might really like this. Like, like that's where your mind should be.
That was an amazing answer. I have a few takeaways. So finding common ground with the people that are interested right away, where you can bring in whatever it is that they're passionate about and share that. I really like the takeaway of adding those new spicier cards to the deck, the Ira deck. That's a great, fantastic idea. I'm definitely going to implore that the next time we do a community event. And the third thing that I think that I am taking away from this is everybody needs to have Steve-like positive energy to sell the game.
There you go. Just gotta inject
just listening to you talk, like, it's easy to tell how passionate you are about what it is that you do, and specifically here where we're talking about Flesh and Blood. Like, you're giving me so many answers that I just would have never seen coming, and just hearing it in your voice is so amazing. And I think that's why, it sounds like you're doing so well as a store, like as far as the Flesh and Blood bringing people in is that passion that you're exuding is going to be infectious upon the people that are coming into the store, and obviously drives them to come back.
Oh, I appreciate that.
So moving into like a more brass tacks question, do armories and bigger events like really help the bottom line of the store? Or is it just everything from, people buying boxes and pre-orders, or is there something specifically that really helps propel the store to continue to, support Flesh and Blood?
It's kind of all the above. Like, so this is the thing. If you like the people who show up for your big, like your ProQuest, your Road to Nationals, things like that, those aren't going to be your regulars. So the game now becomes, how do I make this event worth people coming to? So if you if you say we're going to charge $30 a guy, what's the pricing? That's the first question every player will ask. What's the pricing? And if the pricing is nuts, they're going to show up. So let's say you have a bunch of armories, maybe 1 or 2 of them doesn't fire off. You have some extra cold foils. You put that aside for that big tournament. right? We did one tournament once where every round there was a playmat that got raffled off. I actually bought a bunch of these playmats. I was getting a little bit of a bad reputation just buying everyone's playmats that I could. I recently see someone's ad for playmats. I'm like, frick, I want to buy every one of these playmats. I was like thinking about that's prizing. But anyways,
Yeah.
you can raffle it. You raffle it off every round. Whatever. People are just getting cool things. They're having fun. The cold foils are cheap as hell. You can get cold foils for like $15 now, right?
Yeah.
But it's fun for people, right? But anyways, you stream it. So streaming creates revenue for you. If you got AdSense or whatever, they get monetizing your videos. You get local players if you can to commentate on your event. That brings a certain level of professionalism to your tournament or exciting or whatever. And then so the those events you're marketing to a different demographic than your local guys,
Right.
right? But then if you do a good job with it, some of those people might show up to your store later on, and that's kind of how you're selling your local community, right?
Yep.
To the world. And what's really cool is when you see your local guys start beating people's butts in there. So
Yeah.
like they never heard of this guy, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden he beats Tarek Patel. Like, what the heck? He beat that guy. Like, who is this guy? You know. So like I think you have to look at it as like the events become marketing advertising opportunities to sell your store on its positive traits to the community. The Armory events is you gearing up your locals. You can even make like a training. Like, oh, get ready! There's a tournament coming in a couple weeks. Like, how you feel you're gonna do? Oh yeah, and then, you got a testing team. I wish I had one. Like
Yeah.
you kind of need to understand that like most of your day-to-day business is gonna be singles that you sell online and singles you sell in person and booster boxes, right? You
Yeah.
can also use events. You say, hey, we're buying at a higher percentage for anyone that wants to sell for cash inside the store. Wants to trade in, we're trading in more, and we're doing a sale, right? Doing
Yeah.
a sale on singles. I mean, if some stores they trade, you get 60% trade value for your singles. So it actually works in your favor because you get a 40% profit margin. You could trade with that with the 40%. Okay, now it's 70% trade-ins today or 80%, whatever, right? And it's only store credit, then the money's locked in. You have whatever profit margins on your sealed product or singles or whatever. You use that to over leverage yourself for singles, and then throughout over time, it's a volume game, right? It's a volume game. You'll sell
Yep.
singles to your locals or on Card Trader or whatever you use to sell cards.
Got one final question on this topic.
Sure.
So being a tournament organizer for large events, so like Nats, or even was it a 5K that you guys held?
We try to.
Yeah. So something like 5K, or even just these tournaments that you're putting on that you're throwing extra prizing or chasing cases.
Mhm.
Is that risky for your store? Is like, are you putting your arm out there hoping that this is going to draw people in, or does it usually find its way to success?
So the 5K was a special situation because there was an unlimited amount of people we could shove inside a Discord. I was
Yeah.
making sure about that. However, apparently LSS's server had a problem with it because it crashed and it was really sad. But you know what? That is like a love letter to the community when you're doing like a 5K like that. Because we didn't have any overhead, we didn't have any rent other than my house rent, so it wasn't like the big, like, brick and mortar store like overhead you have to pay. It was just like we had a lot of money saved up. We had a good nest egg going. So and realistically, if the event would have been happening, that was actually be a profitable event. You don't know if you're going to get a bunch of people, but dare to be great.
Yep.
For Chase the Case, it's $400, right? If you're charging $20 a guy or $15 or whatever, and you only need to have 20 people show up for it not to be a complete loss, right?
Yeah.
And anything else after that's great. So if your locals is 6 to 12 guys, you're needing 8 more human beings to show up. If it's a pro quest, they're probably going to show up in those numbers anyways. If you have built up a really strong local community, don't fight with other stores because that's very dumb. Work with other
Yeah.
stores. Communicate with them. Hey, I'm going to do my event on such and such date. Or are you going to do your event on that date? No, we're going to do it on such and this and that date. Okay, good. Don't be like, oh, this store hosts on Wednesdays. Well, to heck with that store. I'm going to host on Wednesdays. Why? Just host
Yeah.
on Saturday. You don't need to. Why don't host on the same day? Because there's a finite amount of players from a pool to which you can pull, right? So don't compete with each other. Work together. High tides raise all boats. So you scale it, those kind of bigger events, to what your client analytics is showing you. So how many people averagely are attending these events? Okay, and if I make it larger, how many can I expect, and what's my threshold that I need to reach to? So what some stores do is they say, okay, if at X amount of players, the prize goes up to this. At this many players, the prize goes up to this, and they kind of like goalpost it, right? Um, I think that we've been blessed by Flesh and Blood. It's not a risk. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put up that money. 5K wasn't scary. The Nationals was scary for a whole different reason, and that was we didn't want to mess it up. That was like
Yeah.
quite concerning because like it's not a lack of confidence. It's that anything can happen. What if like the LSS server just crashes and you can't like you're on the hook. People are there. Like, what's going on? You're gonna have to find an answer. You rely on your experience. Like, okay, we're gonna use this website. This is the site that's gonna carry SOS properly, and we're just gonna have to deal with it. And that's the way it is. Or what if like the head judge and the second head judge both get chronically ill with COVID? Now you're down 2 judges. You have to figure that out. Or what if like there's anything that happens? What if like someone got into the room when it was closed and robs the vendors? Like, who knows what could happen? What if there's a fight? What if someone comes in with a fire extinguisher for a TikTok thing and sprays everybody? Like
What an example.
anything can happen, right? So
You're not wrong.
Let's talk about Canadian Nationals, actually, Steve, because, yeah, I mean, I was nervous about it as well because, Canadian Nationals for the last couple years, they've been all right, but they haven't been events that, really are super memorable, really knocks people's socks off. And I'm just curious, has Red Riot ever run anything of the size of Canadian Nationals for Flesh and Blood before? Because this is like a 3-day event. There's a Friday side events, then Saturday, Sunday events as well. Like, this is pretty big.
Red Riot Games, the company, has run an event that was comparable to it, but not as big as it. So the one was the Grand Archive event, and we had much less resources, but we were in the exact same room with an identical layout. So I was pretty confident that about the room and how it would function. The Grand Archive event was just like I would say that we were not able to execute in the way that we wanted to, and I think that had we been able to, we could have been as successful as we were with Nationals. Conversations that I had with Frederick had me very confident going into it. And I think that going in there, knowing that I had someone as strong as him to, in a way, help TO the event, and when necessary, maybe many times more comfortable with it. I think that hearing how even when we're reviewing the judges, we were like kind of like, okay, so this is the this and that, okay, this is some of the strengths of the right. There was only one person we turned away, and we were both like, frick, man, we really wish we could have him. I was a little disheartened one of the vendors couldn't make it, but the difficulties of it, it's not just a big weekly for sure. The judging side of it, after I understood how the confidence that Frederick had with his team, I knew the ruling would be fine. I thought maybe there'll be a lot of judge calls, and maybe now the judges can get to it. And I had to tell myself a lot of times, like, I do not call the round pairings. I need not to do that. And a couple times I was about to yell out, okay, rounds are paired. Like, nope, you don't do that. Like, oh, this is weird.
Yeah, our job is to make sure you have a stress-free day. That's the in and out of it. But and Fred is the best of the best. So no, definitely having him on board was really huge. Yeah.
But when I met Fred, we had a great first conversation. He also has a Mega Man avatar, so of course, I knew we were gonna get along. Mega Man's my favorite dude, and Fred was very articulate, well put together. What he does in his professional life also led me to believe that he's gonna go over everything with a fine tooth comb. And I felt like having enough people on my team that had enough experience in events made it a lot easier to go into this event confident.
Take us through it from the beginning. When did you learn, or how did the process go? Like becoming informed that you would be the TO for Canadian Nationals. How much time did you have to prepare? Like, what does that even look like on the front end?
So I had emailed them and tell them like, and asked them to run an event, and I was like, I wasn't asking for a national, but I was like, what is the path we need to take to get to a tier 3 event? Because we've done all these events here, and even if I can't have one, I want to know what the pathway is to get there.
Right.
What do I have to show you? What do you want to see? What kind of work is there? And we had a meeting, and it didn't end with like, oh, we're going to give you an event. It ended with, oh, maybe we'll see you in the future. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I guess we were recommended by 2 members of their staff, which was a shock to me, to be a potential host. And they sent me. They had a conversation with their OP for because they have 2 different OP teams. One's the deal with the tier 2, 3, and tier 4, and ones who deal with the other ones, right?
Yeah.
And I had to press upon them the capability to run the event. It was they told me around February, March-ish, and I had that time to figure out how to make a website within our website for Flesh and Blood National.
Okay.
And I couldn't say anything to anybody about anything. It was like, this is just bothersome, isn't it? And they had to sign. There was NDAs that were signed, and I couldn't say anything. So that was a little. I'm a talkative person, so I had to like change subjects on that. People talk about nationals, I had to act like I didn't know anything. And I had to have everything ready, scheduled, and sent to LSS with the event, with the venue planned out by the end of April. So like, shoot, this is a lot to get together.
Okay. So by February you knew that you would do it and that it would be in September, and
Not
by
until
the
March.
end of April, or sorry?
March. I didn't know I had it until March.
Okay, so
And
in
then-
March you learned that you would get it. By the end of April you had to have the venue,
Mhm.
and the event you knew would take place in September. So that's not that much time to become informed in March and need to get the venue together by April and make all those commitments and
Well,
all of
it's-
that. Like, was that challenging up front?
No, because
No?
Alberta Beatdown events that we had in Edmonton, I would start planning the event about 6 months in advance.
Yeah.
It kind of, the only thing that sucked is I wish I would have known that I could have had a bigger room, but I would have to change the event date. But if I had known that, I definitely would have. But they have windows and specific formats for how the event will be. Like, what is this going to be? Da, da, da. And I was like, oh, geez, all right. So, 6 months is, I think, is if I just need to, the sooner I know, the better. Obviously, like, tell me now if it's next year this time. If you tell me
Right.
now and it's next year this time, the more time I have, the more prepared I can be. If you tell me the Nationals is going to be in 3 months, I'm like, that's cool. You need to give me a lot of money because I need to get people better than me at like to help me do this, because that's going to require like I'm not going to be able to run the business because I'm going to be like laser focused, sorry, only on trying to make this not mess up. But 6 months, I had quite a few months to send invitations out to stores that I thought had the best inventory. Obviously, God's Arena with their 5 pallet videos. I'm like, those guys have way more inventory than anybody I know. And after that, it was whoever was applying. But these guys were there at the first Nationals, but only because I informed the TO that it's no benefit for me but to say this, but you really should need to bring these guys to the event. Because if I was smart, I'd be like, no, I'm the only guy. Sorry, no one else in this entire country sells Flesh and Blood. Let me bring my limited amount of singles there, as opposed to 5 pallets worth. So, anyways, so having that much time, that's fine. I think there's some things that I didn't get to do because it would just, and it's more cosmetic things, but and it bothered me not to be able to do them because I really, really, really wanted to, because I thought it would have really made the event just more special. But it is what it is.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, and no event's going to be perfect. But I am curious because there were a lot of great things about the event. There was the great casters that you got, including Ethan Van Sant from the U.S. And for things like that, or even things like the Super Armory on Friday and the PTI event, all the great side events that we had, like how much of that was from LSS, and how much of that was from yourself just wanting to make the event bigger and better than anything that had been done before?
I think they offered 4 kits for the event kits, and they offered a PTI. So the PTI was just a gold foil. And then I kind of had emails with them back and forth saying, hey, I noticed every other professional tournament invitation has like some kind of cash prizing. This one doesn't. There's no additional pricing. Just first place, you get this, and then no one else gets anything. They're like, yeah, well, if you want to put money into it to make it more exciting. I was like, what the deuce? So I was like, of course I have to. This doesn't make any sense. So then I just in a nice way convinced my business partner, like, hey, we're gonna have to put money into this, like a lot, because this event needs to make sense. And I almost completely forgot that I said USD 2000, and then when I looked at it the day of, I'm like, shoot, like that's even more. And
conversion.
LSS actually told me that we were charging too little, and I was like, whatever, it's done now. Like it's now, this is what it is now. But and then the Super Armory events, because I thought that the one armory kit per event was definitely not enough. We had reached out to Prince, and they at the time said that they had a lot of kits, but then they didn't. So I asked LSS for more kits. They had a few more, but a lot of it came from me just buying playmats and buying promos and cold foils to make the events. Like you're entering Super Armory event, you get double promos and cold foils for top 8 for the PTI. Like there was nothing. There was zero before, and the random playmats. I feel sorry for the 3 guys in a row who got a Genus playmat. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Hey, one day he'll be good. And then someone got a Kersham, someone got a Nebula blade, someone got a Scarper skirt. And I remember I was like, oh, no, why did I put that playmat there? So I was like, that's my fault. I knew what I put there, but I was like, all right. So since I have to get rid of my, I was gonna put the Centauri Saber one in there, and then luckily I'm like, no, wait a second, this is a Kasai thing. Those don't go over there.
No.
But yeah, so to answer your question about the side events, we needed to have a 3-day event planned, and I chose which events were going to be and what the pricing was going to be like myself.
Yeah, and it sounds like you invested a lot of your store's resources into the prize pool just to make the events that much extra special, which I know was really appreciated by everyone.
Well, it's still frustrating because I didn't get to do what I wanted to do. I did what I was able to do. So I wanted to have like some Canadian Nationals dice made. I wanted to get a tote bag made. I was gonna get the art that we had for the playmat. I wanted to put that on a tote bag, and I wanted to get because they're kind of cheap, right? But so I could get a lot of them, and I wanted to get the character made as a proxy and put into the top loader and give it out to all the people that qualified for the event. And then like I mean, if you remember, I was asking, hey, what kind of abilities do you think this character should have? And then I was like, maybe I should ask the artist if he can draw me like a weapon, right? Or maybe I'll look on the cards to see like who does the weapons for LSS, and then I'll just, hey, you want to draw me a weapon? What do you think, right? And make it like, just make it fun. The character's not legal, it's nothing, whatever, right? But I thought it would be really cool to have, like, I really wanted it to be the Canadian national that we should have got for year 1 is what I wanted this year to be. because the first year, the magic that was there was not from the folks that was hosting it. It was from the players who have been playing each other for 2 years over Discord, finally getting to meet.
Yeah, that was the best part.
And then like there was tearful moments where people like, oh, I've been talking to you, like when you see like Choco and Draco finally get to meet and they embrace each other in a hug. How's it going, brother? I was like, oh, that's cool. I saw two people who I accidentally went into a private conversation with once in the Discord because I was nosy then. One guy, he was going through like his wife was dying of cancer, and this guy was being a good friend to him, and I saw those two meet. I only knew because they were talking in front of my booth. I'm like, oh, that's weird. This is two guys. I'm not gonna say anything. But like they had met through the Discord, and so like what people don't understand is that these couple years we had, it meant a lot, right? And for some people, like our community was the Flesh and Blood Canadian Discord community. That's all we had. That was our thing, right? That was like, oh, we got to do all the weeklies online and have fun, right? That was our fun, and we got to meet up in person, and that made that event special. But it was only special because the players made it special. So this time I wanted to make it as special as I could for the players, and for them to have as much fun with it. And me and my partner, we were talking. I was like, you know what? If our store ever shuts down, so long as we left this here, we done good.
Yeah,
If we become nothing after this, we don't exist anymore. We left this for them because we wouldn't have existed if they weren't like, you know what I mean? We wouldn't have been existed as a company if these people weren't supporting us. So let's give them everything we have to have the best possible event. And we don't need a thank you. We just need to look in the room and see all these people happy and smiling, shaking hands, people from all different cultures, religions, cities, all across Canada under one roof playing a game that we all love. And that's my payment.
Yeah, I mean your passion and love for the community is easily apparent to everyone here, and the community has been great for years and years. As you mentioned, even though the previous events may not have knocked people's socks off from the tournament perspective, but the community has always been there. And I am curious, are there any lessons specifically that you took from those first couple years of Canadian Nationals that you thought, this is something that now that I have the say on it, this is something that I can do, or that the third Canadian Nationals can really step up on in particular?
So to be 100% transparent, I was not at the second Canadian Nationals, so I can't speak on that.
Sure.
I know Carta Magica does a lot of really big events, and I trust that they put the best foot forward to make that event the best event that they could. That's all I can say on that because I wasn't there. For the other Canadian, for the first Canadian Nationals, I saw the TL twice. I never saw him after that. He was inside another room. So, first of all, doesn't know. TL has to be present. Second, I didn't feel like anything special was being put forward to the players to make our first Canadian Nationals feel like a really big deal. And I wanted it to feel like a really big deal. Right? Like getting the caster to come down to stream it, that was important because we needed to have the presence of like the most professionally ran stream ran by the person who is the most passionate to do it. Very easily could just find a local guy that's got like all the tech and they do streams, like we can get the local fighting game guys to stream like, yeah, but they don't care about the game. Like it's a job to them. This guy loves this. He loves it. So, and there was no stream in the first one. They just recorded the games and they said they weren't allowed to stream it because Ellis says that they can't, which we knew was a bloody lie. So, and I'm not trying to trash them. I'm indifferent to that whole thing, but it felt like it was just like a gig. They were going to get an event and that was it. Cool. Right. So I took it as like the most serious event we could ever have hosted. So what I wanted to do was impress upon the players that like somebody really cared about this. Right. and not be like, thanks for the quick money, guys. Peace. you know.
Yep.
And like, even if you notice, we weren't selling any singles at the event. We sold just our playmats and like packs. Like we weren't there to sell singles. We're there to run a tournament. We're there to make this, like, we want this to be a thing. So the focus I took away from the first one, that the focus needs to be on the event and making it awesome, and making sure like everything is running very smooth and players are happy. Make sure the vendors are happy. Make sure like everyone's got water. you know, and chatting with people outside, like, hey, how you doing? Like how do you feel things are being ran? Is there anything you think was should make better? Like all those things. Like I didn't see that in the first national, so I wanted to make sure that I did that this time.
Now that you say that, I fully agree that the first Canadian Nats was actually flat. I didn't realize it at the time. There were no like banners showing off the game. What was their tablecloth gate? Because there was no tablecloths on their dirty ass tables. Yeah, and now I'm thinking about it. It was pretty poor presentation by the TO. I don't really mean to shit on them, but it didn't matter because of the people that were there. And like you said, like I was meeting Nia for the first time and Mike C. And like you said, all these people I've been playing skirmishes with and online armories. And that was the magic, like you had said. And as a player from that, would definitely feel that. And then, yeah, the TO was just kind of, it just kind of was a thing. So since you mentioned that you wanted it to be, something special, what did it finally feel like come Thursday or Friday when everything started together? Like, what was it like?
Wait, you ever jump off a high? You ever go to like a swimming pool and they have that 4-story jump?
Yep.
It felt like the walk up there. you know, and like as you're going up there, I'll give you a good example. So actually, Edmonton, they have a big water park inside West Edmonton Mall, and there's this one slide you can go to where like the floor just disappears and you go down. I was
Yep.
walking up that thing one time with my brother, and I would never go on that thing. But he's walking up behind me, and he's just like, "Yeah, we're gonna go up this thing." And as we're getting up there, I'm like, "Oh, this is really tall, holy man!" And I'm looking down, I'm like, "Oh my god, woo!" Like this is high, and that's what the tournament felt like. And then when we were about to pair the first round. No, the night before, so Thursday night. I'm lamenting waking up at 7 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, that's the moment I realized just before the slide, the thing disappears and you drop. I hope I didn't make a mistake. And oh, here it goes, and nothing is gonna stop it from happening now. But much like the slide, as we're going down the ride, it's okay. It's gonna be okay. So long as you keep your arms crossed, you're not gonna fall off the sides, and everyone's gonna have a good time.
So were there any surprises that came up beforehand that you guys had to deal with before like the public got there or anything like that?
A vendor had to back out. That was a surprise.
Yeah.
Not so much before the event. Well, I guess my business partner wanted to close the store for Friday. I didn't expect him to want to do that, and he really wanted to be there, and I really didn't want him to. I was like, "Open the store,
man,
you fool!"
stay at the store.
I was like, "Yeah," but then he just closed it anyways, and I'm like, "You, why?" But like, you know what? For him, I get it. He wants to be a part of this because he's been here the whole journey, and like this is the biggest deal thing we've done for the game we care the most about. So of course he wants to be there. So that was
That's
a surprise, but like there was nothing ever like. It was during the event that surprises happened. Where around 6, the thing got deleted. I don't know how that's even possible, but it happened.
Like round 6 got deleted?
Yes, at the end of round 6 draft, it was over, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And they like, thankfully, Felix was there. He said, "Okay, let's get to it. Let's get." He was right on top of it, and Frederick is just like Frederick looked super scared at first, and then he was right on top of it. And then he's like, we're communicating back and forth. He's gonna do it. Okay, I walked away. They're gonna do it. They know what they're doing. I was working with them on Purple Fox. We're good.
Yeah, behind the scenes, there was a glitch in Gem, which resulted in all of round 6 being deleted, which is a nightmare scenario for any event team running a tournament like this. As far as the root cause of why that happened, we think because there were two computers running Gem at the same time. Maybe the wires got crossed. In any case, there was a little bit of triage, but eventually, Fred kept a very cool composure. We had all the results in Purple Fox still. There was just some manual number crunching that had to be done to repair everyone
and
and to
dropping.
re-enter, all the results.
There was a lot of players that, like, so the one concern that I had with Fred is because he wanted me to like exit the page. Like, hang on, I can't exit the page. He's like, no, listen to me. You have to exit. Like, no, but you don't understand. I can't exit the page. I didn't like because he really wanted me to exit that page, and I really needed him to hear me. So then I find like I have a list up here of all the players that dropped from this round. If we don't take note of the players who dropped, they're gonna get paired into the next round. He's like, oh, okay. He took the list down. Then I exit the page. I'm like, once I exit this page, it's over. He's like, exit the page. I'm like, okay. And then he's like, we're gonna work on this right now. We need Alba. I was like, all right. I have to walk away right now because they're on top of this. And there is literally nothing I can do to help them. So it was very difficult to walk away from that because, I want to be involved with it.
You want to fix it.
But me being involved is just going to make it more harder because they just need to. I'm not going to like he's mentioned number crunchers. I'm not going to be able to fix the problem myself. Alba has the results from Purple Fox, and they had the results. We have the results for the match. We just need to pair everybody up manually together in all their pods, hopefully, and it will do what it's going to do. So my best thing I could do there is to just go talk to the vendors and talk to the players and just make sure everyone's happy and calm.
I have a couple more follow-up questions for Canadian Nats. Mm-hmm. What were some lessons that you learned for next time if you get the opportunity?
So if I am ever to get an event of that size, we need a bigger team. I need a co-TO because what a lot of people don't know is I have ADHD, right? So the reason why I had Alba doing scorekeeping with me is because I can get distracted, right?
Yep.
And having a co-TO, this was some of what Frederick was doing, helps me to like stay focused and on task, right? What some people feel is that a TO just walks around and does nothing, but it's like a whole bunch of pressure 6 months ago is what I went through.
Yeah.
So like it was a whole month of this, and now it's just like, so we need a bigger team, and we need a bigger room, and hopefully a bigger budget from LSS, so that we can accommodate that. Understanding math and space between vendors and players and events is it's really important, because you hear, okay, this room is, let's say a room is $20,000. You're like, that's a scary number. Like, wait a second, it's actually not that scary, because how big is the room? Can you fit 5 vendors in there? What do you charge the vendors? Okay, how many players come to the event? How much do you charge the players so that you don't lose your house?
Yep.
Right? Like, knowing that and figuring that out is important. The event was, it shined a light on the need to have more judges. It definitely did. Yeah. And that, like, having maybe multiple someone's whose job is to be designated scorekeepers is extremely important. And I need a bigger clock. A TV that will not suffice. It sounds comical, right, but it's absolutely not. I had thought of investing in, and I'm very much considering getting, when you go to a boxing gym, they have a huge round timer clock.
Yeah.
Those cost like $500 to $1,000. I thought about getting one of those and displaying that. That would be in a position room where nearly everybody can see it, and has its own built-in alarm. Everything's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That might be something worthwhile looking at, right? Instead of just like some big digital like Microsoft clock, right? And then I think we were fine for where the players were playing and where coverage was, but like a bigger room would solve that even better. I think if I got to execute what I wanted, it would have been more fun. The 3D statue things would have been cool. the tote bags, everything, accessorizing the event, making
Yeah.
it really feel like people like traveled for this and got more, having more side events because we were reduced because we didn't have enough space, but having more side events would have been good. But you need more judges for that. You need more judges, and like your side teal needs to be helping with that, or another scorekeeper. So you might like need 2 or 3 scorekeepers for much larger events. Because if we had a much larger room, we could have done so much more with it.
Well, let's hope that you get another shot at it to, put all these ideas down into the world, at the next Canadian Net or something like that.
And I guess going the other way, Steven, like, I mean, I feel like I know the answer to this question, but would you host it again if you were given the chance?
I wouldn't hesitate. However, I would very much impress upon uh, the idea of having the same guys come, because I felt very confident in the guys I was working with, and gal, or they them, Alba.
Mm-hmm.
I felt very confident with that team, and I imagine over the next year, those folks are going to get even better at their job. I'm going to get even better at my job, and having that level of experience, and they know what a national feels like, is it good. You do want to shuffle in some new people, of course, but like I'd really like to have this group. I did tell LSS I could travel, just so you know. I don't need to be here. I can go anywhere in this country. I would love to do something in Edmonton.
Yeah.
These venues are super cheap in comparison, and I would love to. I'd love to. Like, I'm not a teal that's like stuck to one store. We don't. My objective is not to sell my singles at the event. My objective as a teal when I'm in teal mode is to organize an event and execute.
At the same time, though, you shouldn't have to do this at a loss. And my follow-up question is, if you're comfortable sharing, because you have said you've invested a significant amount of your store's own resources into things like prizing and making sure that the participation prizes for the Super Armory were good and giving away the Scar for a Scar playmat. Like, did your store take a loss on making this event as great as it was, or did you end up okay?
No, we definitely took a loss. However, it wasn't because of LSS or the players or anything. It was more to do with me having to be forced to get a lot of the prizing for not just the pro the PTI. It could have even been bigger. If I had booked this venue with more space, I could have done it, right. And the other, but it was more like I the arrangement we had with the distributor at the time before we changed distributors was that they would be giving us prize support for the event, and then they took that away. If we had it, I don't know how much it was going to be, but it would be something. We would have been able to use that for the event, but they decided not to. So I had to acquire that, which was way more expensive. I won my Scar playmat. So it was, I think it was a raffle at the time, and like I entered 40 freaking skirmishes at that time to get this. I was trying to get head jabs, but the anime head jabs that are foil. But like, unfortunately, I got 2. World, I need these anime foil head jabs. If you got them, let me know. But I couldn't. It's not anyone's fault but mine. I could have charged more money for the event, for the PTI, for the kind of pricing that was on the line. I could. It's more on me, and not LSS or players or anything. It's my fault. If the story was to make more money, then I have to do my math better.
Right. And with the template of this year, should you get this event again, I'm sure, there'll be ways to make it just as great or even greater while being sustainable and something that would be, in alignment with your business plan for, so it's sustainable, so it's not a loss year after year after year, right?
I'm going to lose twice as much money and do
don't
twice
say
as
that,
much.
Steven.
I'm just kidding.
That's not what anyone wants.
Well, you know what? That my thing is like I am so focused to put on a show. sometimes I get lost in my own ideas, right? Which is
Yeah.
what a co-TO would help with. But like, I just like I like exciting. I would love to do like an invitational, So you got like if we had say it's 4 years of nationals or 8 years of national champions, we invite the top eight, those eight national champions to come out on Friday to have a match against each other, and they're all playing in an 8-man single elimination bracket. That'd be so cool. Get the eight champions, right? There's not eight, there's three now, but like
Yeah.
Yeah.
something like that'd be cool, or or invitational, exciting match. You get like here's the best. Here's this year's last year's national American champion versus last year's national Canadian champion in a special match against each other. The winner will get a freaking Findel Spring Tunic playmat, whatever, something crazy, right?
Yeah.
And like that's crazy, like that's awesome.
I know Flake was talking about it a long time ago with James White, I think, about having like fireworks and music and coming down a walk like a wrestling intro.
CEO. There's a fighting game tournament that does that. It's called CEO, and
Okay.
everyone has a wrestling intro coming, and there it's done in a ring. The really cool idea I had once, or really wanted to do, I could not do it, was to get a 3D printed crown for sorry. So what it is you get Oldham sitting on the throne, right? And he's all 3D printed, but he has a crown which is made out of the antlers, right? That we got from the animal we have on our quarter, and he's got like a beaver like pelts, like making up like it's his cloak. Just make it super Canadian, right? It's a big statue we have there. I thought having cosplayers there would be cool. Having a cosplay contest would be cool. I obviously I'm not about to buy a tailor because but like you can make it like something cool, like they get something, or you just pay cosplayers to show up there and just as like everyone's favorite characters, right?
Yeah.
Like even that would be cool. You get like you can look them up. Sometimes these people will want to do it for free because they just want to show up there and dress up and have fun, right? So I just want it to be a show, like I really want it to be a show. I think you can make a lot of the money that you need to make just booking enough vendors, having. I think if LSS could team up with Magic like they do in Canada, like they do for the States, the event can be even larger, and the vendors can have you can get maybe different vendors you couldn't otherwise get. But even having one of them like, hey, you know what? I'm going to play a big portion of the room, and I want to like really advertise our presence here at the event. Okay, cool, great. Then the venue is 1,000 times cheaper, so you get more money to bring on more staff. Not a problem. That usually when I'm thinking about how to make an event like better, it's to raise the stakes, right? I think the side events. Maybe if we had made it a 5K and we had twice the amount of space and we had twice the amount of crazy pricing, you get even more people to show up. There's a finite amount of people who will show up, but I always think there's a formula. There's a formula that you can make that will make it make sense. You just have to figure out the healthy balance between like player expectations, how long the event will probably take, space, everything. You got to bring it all together and really be on top of your A game and make sure you have a solid team. I think the only flaw in our team was there wasn't enough of them. And if we had enough of them, it'd be an even better, bigger and more better event, more ran better event. Um, you know, that's just kind of where I'm at.
Yep. Nice. As we wind down here, I have one final question for you. If you would like to share your favorite moment as a game store owner or as a player or a moment in Flesh and Blood or a story you just want to tell our listeners.
Sure. Um, it's kind of more funny. As one time I was walking up to a game and I asked Mike, "Hey, are you done?" He's like, "Yeah, this guy's dead right now." And he proceeds to kill the guy with Kato, and the guy's just like, "Wow, I don't even know what to say." And then Mike's like, "Exactly." And then I was like, "Was that the tournament match?" I was like, "No, this is my third time beating this guy." And like packs up his stuff slowly and like leaves, and I was like, "What the?" He beat him 3 times in an hour. Like he just like, I don't know, man. It was just funny because it's like you get that anime feeling, It's like, yeah, this guy's actually dead. He doesn't realize it yet. Boom, and he just fires off all the stuff. I'm like, damn, okay, that's like.
with my limited interaction, that seems very Mike C-esque.
He actually, I remember when he's at Canadian Nationals, for the PTI, he's like, what deck should I use? What deck do you think I should use? Like Kano. He's like, I was thinking of playing Azalea. Kano. And he's like, yeah, I think I should play Kano then. I'm like, all right. And then he rips up his deck list for Azalea and throws it in the garbage. He's like, now I have to play Kano. I'm like, I think you should play Azalea. Like, just bug him, right? He's listening when he gets like a little arrogant. I think it's hilarious because you could tell the person wants to beat him, but like he's just beating you. There's nothing you can do about it. He's like, take that beating. So I find it comical, and I think yeah, that would be like seeing that at an event and like knowing the guy knowing that he said that and there's nothing he could do about it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yippers. So, was there any other questions you guys wanted to ask?
Yeah, where can we find you if people want to reach out or learn more about Red Riot Games?
I prefer to be in the background, so you don't need to reach out to me. RedRiotGames.ca, or you can join the Discord in there. But I don't like to be like, I'm not the big deal guy. I talk a lot, but I prefer let the work speak for itself.
Oh, thank you so much. And for us, you can follow us on Twitter at IP2 Podcast, on YouTube at IP2 Podcast, on Mastodon, IP2 Podcast at wraith.social. Thank you.
And not scared. Of course I was nervous. Anything could happen. I was literally Flesh and Blood is sitting next to my table. I'm like, oh my god, I gotta stay busy. Don't look suspicious. Don't look suspicious, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, LSS is right there.
Yeah.